Trump ran on making America great again, making America affordable again, curbing inflation, bringing down prices fast. All of these were campaign promises. And we're a year in, and the economy is in such shambles that even Newsmax is admitting it. Let's hear what they have to say.
People aren't feeling it. And so when do we get there, to the fact that Americans need to feel the economic progress that we're experiencing under President Trump and Republicans?
Well, I think we were all pleasantly surprised by the third quarter GDP numbers of 4.3%. The problem is that Democrats, Biden left so many enormous messes. The open borders, the war, the hangover from 40-year high inflation, which devalued our dollar from the dollar held in 2019 is only worth 80 cents. That doesn't go away. That's permanent devaluation. So it takes time to turn the situation around so people can feel it. People's real wages are increasing. But the good news is President Trump is focused on this. He comes from the private sector. Everything he's doing it's the right thing. Reduce regulation, reduce taxation. How quickly that kicks in where people really feel it, I really can't predict that.
Yeah.
Notice how he didn't mention Trump's favorite word, Mike, tariffs. Trump's absolute favorite word in the English language. He's probably said it the most out of any president we've ever heard, at least in modern history. And Ron Johnson just completely omitted that. That is probably one of the most consequential economic things that has happened, I think, in Trump's second term so far. So much so it was dubbed Liberation Day when they were announced, but that didn't make his analysis there. He mentioned the GDP, however, which is funny because GDP might be one of the most useless metrics out there, to the point where even the inventor of GDP, the guy who came up with the concept and the formula to calculate it, even he said that it is an inconsequential and terrible way to measure a nation's welfare. I think between the GDP and the stock market are pretty much the only two positive metrics that this administration can point to as to look how great our economy is doing. But when you look down at what people are actually experiencing day to day, when you look at the job situation, it is absolutely horrendous. We've barely added any jobs in this country since April. Okay, that's like half a year of barely any job growth at all. That is absolutely catastrophic. We don't have a pandemic or a recession that they're admitting to point to say, oh, we're in hard times. They're pretending that we're in a golden age. No jobs are being added. He said real wages are increasing. According to who? Who is he asking real wages are increasing for? People are working like 2 to 3 jobs these days just to get by. We have people that are at a record level now using buy now, pay later programs to fund their groceries. This is unprecedented. Housing is unaffordable for most people now. This is the American dream is essentially dead for most of the population. So I don't understand how they can both. This is kind of the whole Trump's two sides thing that we've been covering lately, Mike. It's like they're claiming how great the economy is by saying, look at the stock market, look at GDP. But at the same time, they're saying, but we don't know when people are going to feel those things. People are never going to feel those. If you do not have $1 million invested in the stock market that has risen on its way up, you're not going to feel that. And guess what? The bottom 90% of America barely has any stocks at all. It's mostly owned by the top 10%. So, this whole regime is just an elite defense, protection, establishment regime where if you're a normal everyday person, you don't really count in the economy. Your troubles don't really matter too much. We don't care if you don't have health care. We don't care if you don't have a living wage. We don't care if you get or don't get SNAP benefits. That's all on you. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Mike, what do you make of first of all, I found it fascinating that even Newsmax is admitting that, the economy is not looking too good for most people. And secondly, Ron Johnson's just lame-ass excuse and analysis just to cover for Trump's horrendous handling of the economy so far. What do you make of all of that?
Yeah, I think you made a lot of great points there, Emmanuel. There's quite a few things that he brought up. And one thing that you brought up about how this administration has been like a shield for the elites and whatnot. Look at the inauguration. Who was there? Granted, you always typically have prominent figures at inauguration speeches and whatnot, but it was all tech billionaires. And they did it indoors so that the public wasn't even necessarily there. It was VIP only, basically. And yeah, it was cold, but it's cold every year. So it's just like that should have been indicator number one, especially given that a lot of the public that was there were Trump supporters. They were people who wanted to see him in, they wanted to celebrate with him, and they were literally left out in the cold. So this shows that Trump and this entire administration is set up to back the billionaires and screw the people. That I think that's pretty common, pretty commonly understood. As you mentioned, real wages are not increasing. Minimum wage hasn't moved in decades. And Ron Johnson mentioned, taxation. Trump's doing all the right things. He's reducing regulation and he's reducing taxation. So the regulation that's primarily been reduced under Trump so far this year has been, number one, DEI regulations. So, but that's people losing jobs, not gaining jobs. And then the only other thing that I can think of that's a big deregulation is with the One Big Beautiful Bill, they barred regulation against AI for the next 10 years. And as a result, the moment the Big Beautiful Bill passed, Microsoft, I believe, laid off like 100,000 people or something, or it was like tens of thousands of people. Like that day, Microsoft laid them off. We've seen Nvidia lay off other people and whatnot as well. There's all these big tech companies are now surging into AI. They're heavily investing in AI. And of course, that will drive up GDP because of those transactions. But the reality is, like, thousands of people are losing their jobs today, now. And then over the next 10 years, we can't bring those jobs back. We can't fight for keeping those jobs out of the hands of AI. So, of course, AI is going to get worse and worse and worse. We've even just seen in a recent thing from Trump where he specifically said, hey, we're going to be employing a lot of artificial things, and referring to employing AI and robots instead of people. So even though he's promising, we'll have these factories, it's all going to be machines running it, not people. So there's going to be very, very little jobs created, but far more jobs lost. And this has obviously been the concern about automation for years and years and years. And personally, I think we've been behind the eight ball long before Trump. But Trump, as with all things, he's kind of just driving us off the cliff. He's the one accelerating this instead of like keeping it at least at a steadier pace or at a slower pace. So maybe we can do something. He's just going full throttle. And I think that the other bit about the taxation, when you look at taxes being reduced, they're only being reduced for the top 1%. That's the whole point of the One Big Beautiful Bill. All of these spending cuts and program cuts and whatnot, all of those are cut to give billionaires tax credits and lower their taxes. So of course, again, when their taxes are lowered, they may invest more, they may do more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that translates to everyday people. Grocery prices are still high, gas prices are still high, inflation, I believe they said that like inflation has been curbed, but I've just read an article from Reuters today that mentioned that specifically in relation to the GDP spike, this 4.3, that there's indications that inflation will be rising again pretty soon. And so, yeah, I think no matter which way you kind of look at it, you've also got Doge coming in and completely failing. They underdelivered. They were dismantled. And as we recently talked about, they even, like at the end of the year, government spending was increased by 6%. So, Doge fell apart and caused economic problems. And then mass deportation, that's another massive spending problem because Trump not only put the ICE funding on steroids. ICE is currently funded through the Big Beautiful Bill. ICE is receiving more funding than the U.S. Marine Corps. So not only was that a massive spending expense there, but it's also just in general, if you're going to deploy, all these agents across the country and run these, mass detention centers and whatnot. It's all expensive. And this is why people have argued against mass deportation for years, because it's very, very expensive and it's very ineffective. And on top of that, the people that you're removing, they pay taxes. Even though they may be undocumented, they're still paying taxes. So, and then when they're gone, you're left with less income anyway. So, and they help businesses. Like it's just crazy that we're kind of seeing all this sort of these multiple dominoes falling, all around us. And for this administration to sit there and go, oh no, things are great. Because as you mentioned, this is definitely another form of double talk where they say, hey, look, things are good. GDP's up, stock market's up. But at the same time, you can't ignore that everybody else is suffering. If you're wealthy, this may be the golden era. But if you're not, this is horrible.